Board Game Geeks, happy Saturday. Hang on to your player boards. We're going to double down. Today is Double Spasm. You ever heard of a guy named Ryan Laukat, L-A-U-K-A-T? He's two things. He makes good games and makes terrific art. So I'm going to talk to you today about a little interesting combo. A game called Above and Below that's been out for a while. That's not super new. But the completed Kickstarter for the sequel to Above and Below called Near and Far by the same designer. This is Red Raven Games. The reason I'm talking about both of them at the same time is they've got so much in common that there's no way to split it apart. So let me start here. One of the add-ons you could get for the Kickstarter for Near and Far was some, excuse me, I just burped on camera. That's staying in. Punishment for poor planning. I should not have, you know what that was caused by? That was caused by this. I blame me. So, one of the add-ons you can get for Near and Far were some expansion stuff for Above and Below. So I thought it would be worth showing you that, so you see what that is about. The expansion for Above and Below would give you a new book of stories. If you're familiar with Above and Below, it's a storytelling game, which is really cool. So you get a whole new book that allows you to visit the Underforest and the Desert Labyrinth. These are two new locations you can go to when you're playing Above and Below. You can, if you'd like, instead of picking one of the cards that have an encounter, you can pick one of these chits and put it on the card, and when you roll the die, this die, for example, has a 1, 2, and a 3 on it, so it replaces the 1, 2, or 3 that's on the story card. So you have a 50-50 chance of either going to one of the new expansion locations or to one of the old old locations from the original game. So that was kind of cool. In addition, you get new workers, and those workers have different icons on them that give you a bonus. So, for example, this guy right here has a Quill Plus. So instead of just recruiting or training, you get a discount of $1 or 1 coin, gold, whatever, whenever you use him to do that. So they've got some neat new things that you add onto the game. Game's also a little more challenging. They've added some game end things that, you know, if you're the first person to have 2 barrels of cider in a pair, you get 3 points. So they added on some stuff in that regard. They also added on some condition tokens. You might actually end up with some awful conditions as a result of going on some of the Desert Labyrinth and Underforest trips. You get tool tokens. Tool tokens are things you can equip your people with, and once around you can flip it over and use its ability to make quests a little easier to do. And you also, no, that's pretty much the gist of what you get for that. By the way, there's also a expansion available on the Board Game Geek store, if you want to go there, the Above and Below Groves, and that allows you to make placement location of buildings an aspect of the game, a strategic thing you have to plan for by deciding which buildings go where. So, for example, if you were to, instead of going on an adventure, when you go questing, you can just go here. You know exactly what you might win as a result. And when you take this and place it, you place it next to a building, and the next building you place, you want to make it match those arrows, because you'll get points for putting the right buildings next to those. So that's available on Board Game Geek. It's less than $10, and I like it. That's one of the things we don't take back out. So that's Above and Below, and I wanted to just point out a little bit of the information about this before I get into Near and Far. So now we're going to get into Near and Far. We're going to make things complicated for which place this goes on Board Game Geek. Probably will go on the Near and Far. So Near and Far is a much bigger and cooler, in a lot of ways, undertaking than Above and Below, because Near and Far is a campaign storytelling game. You've got a lot of options. One of the first cool things you'll notice about Near and Far is that the board is not a board, it's a map book. And each level you go into is a new map. And each map has new locations with new quests and things attributed to each location. And map movement is actually a component of the game where you're moving around the map and putting down little tents to make like sort of camping sites that make it easier for you and everybody else to move. There are trade routes that you can claim to get points at the end of the game. So if you are the person who has that trade route right there, you'll get 9 points. And if you share it with somebody else, you get a little bit less. And so this is cool because if you want, you can play through the game. You can do a story campaign for each character that's in the game. There are a number of unique characters that was increased quite a bit by the stretch goals, which is awesome. So you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe 9, maybe 10, maybe 10 characters you can pick from. Now this is going to upset some of you people who don't like to, like, we are writing, see this? This is a character sheet. That's my wife's character sheet. That's Jenny's. And this is my character sheet. We're writing on them, guys. We're writing right on them. You get a few copies of each one, but that's what they're for. So don't go crazy. I know you could have laminated them. You could have, yeah, but I live on the edge. So you also get a sheet of blank character sheets you could use for anybody. That's right. I could have used these paper ones, and instead I wrote on the cardboard. Bananas! So each character has its own story, and if you want to play a character campaign, you can have a specific campaign storyline that happens as you move through each map until you finally reach, until you've done 8 personal quests, or you do 7 personal quests, and at the end, you get to go to the last ruin and do the special ending. And each person not only has their own quest, but branching stories and different and multiple endings for each person. And every time you play a map, and you complete quests, you get experience points that you can then spend. I decided on taking lore and potion making. Jenny took gem trading and potion making. You see a trend there. And the game tells you what the different abilities do. So it's a multiplayer game. It's not meant to be played solo. It's also not cooperative. It is a competitive game, so you are getting points as you finish each map. You can also play a game where you're just playing the campaign of playing through the entire book. So rather than having specific quests that are for each character, you can have quests that are specific to the locations on the map, which I like a lot. I think that's really cool. Now, if you're thinking, this is a commitment that I don't have time for, you don't need to. They actually give you a deck of cards they call arcade mode cards, and instead of having to read through all the different quests in the book, you can have just these skill checks that you do off of the cards, which allows you to have sort of infinite replayability for the game. The characters all have their own character sheets. You've got standees, because although the board itself is a book of maps, you do still have, like, there's a town map here. You have, like, the evening town map, which is the easier version, like that, and then you have the daytime town map, which gives spices it up a little bit once you're familiar with the game. You've got all sorts of cards. You've got plastic gems. You've got cool little plastic or cardboard. These are wooden. They're not plastic. They're not cardboard. These are wooden tent meeples that represent the camps that you put out on the map book as you play. These are clinkets. This is the universal term that I use to refer to all metal money in all games, period. That is Klinkets. Trademark. So these are metal coins that represent the currency in the game, which I love. It's fantastic. I think it did come with chits for money too, but that's in the basement somewhere. If I got those, I don't keep them in the... If I have awesome bits, I don't keep the regular bits. Oh, yeah. Oh, I do. Here you go. Meh. I wrote meh. Cardboard, coins, and gems. So instead of this, with the stretch goals, we got these sweet things. And by the way, these are not the Ascension-style standard gems. Like these actually... Really? Not right now. I'm very busy. These actually look like little diamonds, which is kind of cool. This dog may start bark. The dog's going to bark. That's good. She wishes to participate. There are food tokens and animal companions that you can get. Where is the town board? Is there another? Oh, each player has their own board, and you keep all the supplies you capture or put right here. You can have treasures that do different, give you different perks and abilities, but you have to have pack animals to hold them. And then you can have up to 4 people in your band that are going with you, one from each faction, cult, group. They're not cults. It's definitely not a cult. And yeah, so the whole game is about, actually it was really loud, the whole game is about exploration and picking different people and adding them to your party and having these great adventures that are a little bit like choose your own adventure. One of the criticisms of Above and Below is that when you're telling a story, you would have this whole story and then you were given an option of what to do, and after you were given the option of what to do, you would just be told what you won as a result of doing that. So if you help the pig folk, or if you ransack the pig folk mine. If you help them, you get these things, and if you ransack, you get that. So one of the things that I think is much improved in this version, or in this game, is that the book is, by the way, easily twice as thick as the storybook in Above and Below. Now, if you get the Desert Labyrinth and Underforest expansion, that sort of remedies that. But this is a big, fat book of stories, and if you're a completionist lunatic, and you don't mind writing on your stuff, which I know some people get driven crazy by, each story in the book has a little box next to it that you can fill in with a pen or a marker to show that you have read that story. So you will know which ones you've ever done and which ones you haven't done as you're playing through the game. But the other thing that's cool is that once you decide what you're going to do and what skill check you have to pass, it actually finishes the story and tells you what happens as a result, instead of leaving it to you when you're like, I decided to help the man on the boat, and they're like, you get a jar and a mushroom and 1 reputation, and you're like, I get the reputation, but why the mushroom? What is that? So, yeah. It does come with a pencil, just in case you need a nude, unmarked, pre-sharpened, non-eraser pencil to mark down the stuff on your book. We are already liking this a lot. Jenny and I have already played 2 or 3 maps in the story mode, the character mode. It's called a couple of different things, and we are thoroughly enjoying ourselves. We love the art. Oh, there's another really cool perk. I almost forgot. You can actually use the characters from near and far in a game of above and below. So they have one side for near and far and another side for above and below. If you're familiar with above and below, then this will make sense. They don't need a bed. They have their own bed, so you don't have to worry about that. They don't have to roll when they go on quests. They just automatically succeed for however many lanterns they have at the bottom. And there's another really cute thing that I love, is that some of them have bread on the top, and some of them have bacon on the top. And if you are able to, at the end of the game, for every set of bread and bacon that you have, you get points for bacon sandwiches. Yes, that's a real thing. And why wouldn't it be? Because that sounds amazing right now. Bacon sandwiches. So that is near and far, and the above and below perks that you get as a result of getting near and far. This is a great game if you're into the storytelling bit and you're really into flavor and feel and that sort of thing. There's a 3rd game in this series, and I'm awful because right now I cannot remember what it's called. Islebound. And you can also use components from Islebound in Above and Below. I think it all goes back to Above and Below. These are excellent. I highly recommend them. So check them out from Red Raven Games. Above and Below with the Desert Labyrinth and Underforest expansions, and the Grove mini expansion off Board Game Geek, and Near and Far by the same designer. I'm Brian Hazard. This has been your Saturday Spasm. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Be sure to check me out on my own channel, Game Spasm, and stay tuned here on Gamerati for all your gamer news and interesting things throughout the week. I will see you on the Geek. Take it easy.